She didn't reject you. She vivisected you. She laid your soul bare on a cold steel table, in a room full of people, and showed them every weakness, every insecurity, every ounce of need you possessed. You thought it was a conversation. It was a public autopsy, and you were still alive to feel the scalpel. She didn't just say, no. She held up your hope, your carefully constructed image of a future, and she crushed it in her fist, letting the dust fall to the floor in front of everyone. You weren't left. You were dismantled, piece by agonizing piece, until nothing was left but a hollowed-out monument to your own impotence. That deafening void that rushed in to fill the space her final word left behind. The low hum of the air conditioner suddenly sounded like a jet engine. Casual laughter from a table across the room felt like a personal insult, a jeer aimed directly at the core of your failure. You could feel the shift in the room's gravity. Every eye, once casually drifting, was now locked onto you. Not with sympathy. Never with sympathy. It was a cold, primal assessment. The other men in the room looked at you and saw a cautionary tale, a ghost of their own deepest fears. And in seeing your defeat, they felt a surge of their own strength. They stood a little taller. The other women looked at you with a carefully practiced expression of pity. But their eyes, their ancient reptilian eyes, held a different message. A flicker of contempt, a confirmation of their own judgment. It had been weighed, measured, and found wanting. You failed the test. You played by the rules of a game you didn't even know existed. You offered honesty. You offered vulnerability. You offered your desire, pure and unfiltered, believing it was a gift. And she treated that gift like a stain on her reputation, something to be publicly wiped away. You stood there, frozen, replaying her words, her tone, the slight curl of her lip that betrayed a satisfaction in her cruelty. You were searching for logic, for a reason, for a mistake you could correct next time. But you were looking in the wrong place. You were trying to solve a rational puzzle when you were, in fact, caught in a brutal biological transaction. You were operating on the flawed software of romance, poetry, and fairness. You were trying to appeal to her mind, when her mind is merely the press secretary for a much older, much more powerful dictator, her biology. The ruthless German philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer, would have laughed at your confusion. He saw through the charade of civilized courtship centuries ago. He understood that beneath the thin veneer of social grace, of polite conversation and romantic ideals, there is only one true driving force: the will. A blind, relentless, insatiable striving for life and power. Not rational. It is not kind. It does not care about your feelings or your well-articulated plans for the future. It is a current, and you were trying to swim against it with words of affection. Schopenhauer stated that every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world. Your world was limited by your belief in her words, in the illusion that she was a rational agent making a conscious choice. The reality is that her choice was made long before she ever spoke. It was made by a part of her brain that doesn't understand language, only power, survival, and genetic value. You didn't lose an argument. You lost a war that was fought and decided on a purely instinctual level. But here's the devastating truth that is also your greatest weapon. That same primal biological will that orchestrated your defeat is also her greatest vulnerability, because it cannot be fully contained. It is a force of nature that always, always betrays itself. While her mouth forms the words of dismissal, while her conscious mind constructs walls of logic and social justification, her body is a traitor to her cause. It leaks the truth in a language you were never taught to read. There are 7 involuntary tells, 7 subconscious broadcasts of the will's true intent that cut through her verbal defenses like a hot knife through butter. A slight, almost imperceptible shift in her posture. A fleeting glance that lasts a fraction of a second too long. A subtle change in the rhythm of her breathing. These are not random tics. They are the undeniable signals of her biological assessment of you, the raw data streaming directly from her core programming. On that day of your public execution, she was broadcasting these signals, but you were too deafened by her words to see them. You saw the fortress and believed it was impenetrable, when in reality, She was showing you the secret passage. The gap between what she says and what her body does is not a contradiction. It is a vacuum of power. And by the end of this transmission, you will learn not only how to see that vacuum, but how to step into it and seize absolute control of the entire dynamic. Before we arm you with the ability to see this hidden language, you must commit to the war. This is not a place for passive observation. This is a training ground. So take your first strategic action now. Subscribe to Psychological Dominion and activate all notifications so you never miss a critical briefing. Drive the like button into the ground to signal your allegiance to this new way of thinking. And in the comments below, I require 2 pieces of intelligence from you. First, report the city and country you are operating from. We are a global. Second, I want you to detail the moment of your own public execution. Describe the rejection that brought you here. Do not sanitize it. Do not soften it. Write down the words she used, the look in her eyes, the silence that followed. We do not bury our traumas here. We excavate them, study their architecture, and use them to build the foundations of our empire. Your war starts now. Let us dissect your downfall with the cold precision of a surgeon. That public execution was not the beginning of your war. It was the final bloody battle in a war you had already lost. You didn't see it because the defeat wasn't a singular event. It was a creeping rot, a slow, methodical decay of your authority that began long before she ever spoke the words that ended you. This decay happens in 5 distinct phases of surrender. A strategic withdrawal from your own power that you mistook for love, for compromise, for being a good man. You were not being good. You were being weak. The first phase is emotional concession. It begins innocently. You cancel your plans because she had a bad day. You agree to go to a restaurant you dislike because it's her favorite. You say yes when your every instinct screams no, all under the guise of keeping the peace. You call it compromise. Schopenhauer would call it the first act of self-annihilation. The will, that primal force he identified, is the core of your being, your striving, your direction. Every time you concede on a matter of your own desire, no matter how small, you are signaling to her will that it is superior to yours. You are teaching her that your boundaries are permeable, that your frame is negotiable. She wanted to see a different movie. You wanted to see the one you had both planned on. You said, "It's okay, we can see yours." In that moment, a test was issued, and a verdict was rendered. She tested. You yielded. She won. This is not a transaction of love. It is a negotiation of power. You offered your territory without a fight, and she, guided by an instinct far older than courtesy, took it. This happens not just with women, but everywhere. At work, your boss asks you to stay late, infringing on your personal time. You agree without negotiation, thinking it shows dedication. It shows you are a resource to be exploited. Your friend changes the meeting spot to a location convenient only for him. You drive the extra 30 minutes. You have just taught him that his time is more valuable than yours. The erosion has begun. The second phase is the loss of control. Your concessions, once occasional, become the new standard operating procedure. You no longer make plans without first running them through the filter of her potential approval. Stop wearing a certain shirt because she once made a passing comment. You mute your personality in certain social settings to avoid her silent, disapproving glance. Her silence is dominance, not inattention. When she can control your behavior without uttering a single word, she has achieved a level of mastery over you that is profound. You have become a satellite, your orbit dictated by her gravitational pull. You think you are being attentive, considerate. You are, in fact, abdicating the throne of your own life. Schopenhauer observed that man is a puppet, pulled by the strings of the will. You have willingly handed her your strings. Think about it. You used to go to the gym 3 times a week. It was your ritual, your source of strength. She started saying things like, "Are you going again?" or sighing when you picked up your gym bag. So you started skipping sessions. First 1, then 2. Now you barely go at all. You didn't have a conversation. You didn't have a fight. You simply surrendered a piece of your sovereignty to appease her unspoken displeasure. You have allowed her emotional state to dictate your actions. This is not a partnership. This is a hostile takeover conducted in whispers and glances. The third phase is the desperate, nauseating quest for validation. Having ceded control of your actions, you now require her approval to feel any sense of self-worth. Your internal compass is broken, so you look to her for direction. Questions begin. Do you love me? Are we okay? Did you have a good time? You are no longer a man standing beside her. You are a beggar at her feet, pleading for scraps of validation. Each question is a confession of your own insecurity. It screams to her primal brain that you are unstable, that your value is contingent on her opinion. She tested you, and you failed. Remember that project at work? You did an excellent job, but you couldn't feel proud of it until your boss explicitly praised you. That gnawing anxiety you felt while waiting for his email? That was the void left by your own self-respect. With a woman, it is 1,000 times more potent. When you finish telling a story and immediately look at her face to gauge her reaction, when you buy her a gift and your primary emotion is anxiety about whether she'll like it, you have lost. You are no longer offering from a place of abundance. You are performing for a judge, and a merciless one at that. Schopenhauer would say you are a prisoner of representation, living not in the world as it is, but in the world as you hope she sees it. This is a prison of your own making. The fourth phase is affective dependency. This is the critical stage where your emotional state becomes completely tethered to hers. If she is happy, you are granted a temporary reprieve, a moment of peace. If she is upset, your entire world plunges into chaos. Walk on eggshells. You preemptively apologize for things you haven't even done, just to avoid a potential conflict. You become a professional mood manager, an emotional caretaker, and in doing so, you completely erase yourself. When you apologized for that thing you didn't do, just to end the argument, you signed your surrender. You communicated that your peace is less important than her comfort, that objective truth is less important than her subjective feelings. You have become her emotional utility. Think of the last time she was in a bad mood for reasons that had nothing to do with you. Did you absorb that mood? Did your day become ruined as well? Did you scurry around trying to fix it to make her happy again? Her problem became your emergency. You have adopted her will as your own, a philosophical impossibility and a practical catastrophe. You are no longer the stoic rock against which the waves of her emotion can break. You are a flimsy raft tossed about in her storm. You recognize the insidious rot of these stages in your own life. If you have ever felt the ground of your own authority turn to quicksand beneath your feet, then your re-education must be absolute. This is not a negotiation. Subscribe to Psychological Dominion now. Activate every notification because every transmission is a weapon you cannot afford to miss. Drive the like button into the ground as a declaration of war against the weakness that brought you here. And in the comments below, I demand your honest assessment of your own downfall. At which of these phases did you first realize the war was lost? Was it the small concessions, the loss of control, the hunt for validation, or the total emotional dependency? Pinpoint the moment your surrender began. Your honesty is the first step toward reclaiming your power. Now, many of you will raise objections. Your conditioned mind will fight back. But relationships are about compromise, you'll say. You are confusing compromise with capitulation. Compromise is a strategic decision made between two sovereign powers. Capitulation is the surrender of a weaker force to a stronger one. When you have a solid frame and an unshakable sense of your own will, you can negotiate. When you have already given away your power piece by piece, you are not negotiating. You are begging for terms. Another objection. But shouldn't I be sensitive to her feelings? Sensitivity is a tool, not a state of being. A warrior is sensitive to the direction of the wind, not so he can be blown away by it, but so he can use it to his advantage. You must be aware of her emotional state, not to be enslaved by it, but to understand the battlefield. Your sensitivity should be a source of intelligence, not a conduit for her control. You're looking for an excuse to remain comfortable in your weakness. You are hoping for a softer, kinder path. But here is the brutal truth. No one is coming to save you. Your belief in fairness, in 50-50 partnerships, in the romantic ideal of two becoming one. These are the very illusions that disarmed you. The final phase, the one that leads directly to your public execution, is breaking the silence. After months or years of silent concessions and emotional servitude, the pressure becomes unbearable. You snap. You initiate the dreaded, "we need to talk" conversation. You vomit up all your repressed feelings, your resentments, your needs. You do it with the naive expectation that you are entering a court of logic, that if you just explain your position clearly enough, she will understand. You are trying to use reason to solve a problem of power. It is like trying to use a love poem to stop a charging bull. She does not hear your well-articulated points. Her primal brain hears only one thing, the pathetic squeal of a weak animal. Your desperate plea for fairness is the ultimate confirmation of her dominance. You are admitting you have no other tools, no other leverage. You are on your knees, and in that moment, she feels not sympathy, but contempt. It is the contempt of the predator for prey that no longer puts up a fight. This is what happened in that room. Your attempt to connect, to be vulnerable, was the final desperate act of a man who had already surrendered his power long ago. Her rejection was not a spontaneous decision. It was the formal, public announcement of a victory she had secured in 100 smaller, silent battles you didn't even know you were fighting. All is never visible when it happens. It happens in the silence, in the half-second of hesitation before you say yes when you mean no, in the apology that dies on your lips for a crime you didn't commit. You were dismantled in private, long before you were executed in public. There is no going back for the weak. There is only the construction of the new. Let this truth sear itself into your mind, because what you are about to receive is not a set of comforting platitudes or a guide to healing. Healing is for wounds. You were not wounded. You were strategically dismantled. Therefore, your response cannot be to heal. It must be to rebuild, not as you were, but as a fortress, cold, impenetrable, and built upon the ashes of the man who fell. This is not an emotional journey. This is a tactical operation. Your feelings are irrelevant. They are battlefield noise, a distraction from the mission. The mission is the restoration of absolute domain over your own existence. Your first operational command is to cut the excess. Everything that does not contribute to your ascent must be purged. This begins with her. You will reinstall scarcity. This is not the childish game of waiting an hour to text back. This is the strategic equivalent of a nuclear winter. You will vanish from her reality. No final text, no dramatic explanation, no closure conversation. You will cease to exist in her world, completely and without warning. Block her number. Erase her from all social media. Remove every digital and physical artifact of her existence from your environment. Why? Because your constant availability, your lingering presence in her periphery, was a resource she exploited. It fed her ego and affirmed her power over you. By creating a sudden and total vacuum, you force her subconscious mind to confront a question it never had to ask before. Where did he go? You are no longer a predictable variable in her equation. You have become an unknown, and the unknown is a space where her control evaporates and your power begins to grow. Be an absence that carries weight, not a presence that begs. The second command: install the silence. This is the weapon that grows in the vacuum you've created. When she inevitably reaches out, and she will, because the void you left is an intolerable imbalance you will impose silence. Your silence is not passive. It is an active denial of the validation she seeks. Her text message is not a question. It is a probe, a test to see if the puppet's strings are still attached. By not responding, you are not ignoring her. You are communicating a new reality in a language far more powerful than words. You are saying, your access to me is no longer guaranteed. Your emotional state is no longer my concern. The terms of engagement have changed, and you are no longer in a position to set them. Every unanswered message is a small victory. It is a brick being laid in the foundation of your new frame. She is broadcasting a signal into the void, and for the first time, she is met with nothing. This is terrifying for a person accustomed to controlling the emotional atmosphere. Do not reconquer. Replace with a sharper silence. her confusion is the sound of your power returning. Should interaction be unavoidable? A shared workplace? A mutual social circle? Your third directive is to engage with minimal and unpredictable output. Be a ghost. Your conversations are brief, polite, and utterly devoid of emotional data. You are a gray rock. You offer no information about your life, your progress, or your feelings. You ask no questions about hers. You are a flat surface from which her emotional probes slide off harmlessly. Your responses are unpredictable. Sometimes you might offer a brief, neutral reply. Other times you will simply offer a nod and walk away. This inconsistency prevents her from establishing a new pattern of control. She cannot map you. She cannot anticipate you. You have become a strategic enigma. She is used to playing chess with an opponent who broadcasts every move. You are now playing a different game entirely, on a board she cannot even see. These defensive maneuvers are merely the shield. The sword is your fourth and most critical command, a total and ruthless focus on building your hierarchy. Schopenhauer understood that the universe is driven by a blind, striving will. The pathetic man directs this will outward, seeking validation from others, especially women. The powerful man turns this will inward, like a blast furnace, to forge himself into a weapon. You will now redirect every ounce of energy you once wasted on her, and invest it into the 4 pillars of masculine power. First, the physical. You will sculpt your body with the discipline of a Spartan. The gym is your temple and your forge. Every drop of sweat is a purification of your past weakness. Second, the financial. You will attack your work, your career, your business with a singular predatory focus. Your bank account is a measure of your power in a world that respects nothing else. Become a monster of production. Third, the social. You will cultivate a network of powerful men. You will learn. You will build alliances. You will become a man of value whose presence is requested, not tolerated. Fourth, the symbolic. You will read. You will study. You will acquire skills. You will become more interesting, more competent, more dangerous in every conceivable way. A man who wants to be loved will be discarded. A man who imposes presence will be feared. And fear is a form of respect that can never be faked. This is not about getting over her. This is about making your own life so brutally and overwhelmingly powerful that her memory becomes a footnote in a much greater story. Schopenhauer wrote, "The 2 foes of human happiness are pain and boredom." Your previous life was a pendulum swinging between the pain of her rejection and the boredom of your own unfulfilled potential. This reconstruction plan eliminates both. The process of forging yourself is difficult, yes, but it is a meaningful difficulty. It is the pain of growth, not the pain of subjugation. As he stated, to overcome difficulties is to experience the full delight of existence. You are not just recovering, you are discovering the profound satisfaction of self-mastery. You are taking the raw, chaotic energy of the will, the same energy that led you to ruin, and you are disciplining it, shaping it, and aiming it at the creation of a superior self. The goal is not to win her back. The goal is to build a kingdom where she would not even be granted an audience. This is the moment of commitment. The theory is over. The war begins with your next action. Drive the like button into the ground as a declaration that you are finished with weakness. Subscribe to Psychological Dominion and activate all notifications, for this is no longer entertainment. It is your new operational command. In the comments below, answer this with absolute honesty, for yourself and for the brotherhood of men watching. What is the single greatest piece of your old, weak self that you will burn to the ground first? Is it your desperate need for her validation? Your fear of being alone in the silence? Or your pathetic addiction to comfort and avoiding conflict? Declare your target. Your public declaration is your first volley in this new war. This path is not about her. It was never about her. Her public execution of your character was merely the symptom of a deeper disease, your own abdication of power. You handed her the knife, piece by piece, with every concession, every validation-seeking question, every moment you chose her comfort over your own integrity. The reconstruction is about reclaiming that sovereignty. It is a cold, methodical process of becoming a man whose internal reality is so strong, so unshakable, that the opinions of others, especially a woman from your past, are as meaningless as the whisper of the wind. You will become the storm. You will become the force of nature that others must react to. Your objective is to reach a state of such profound self-possession that if you were to see her again, you would feel nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even victory. Just the quiet, indifferent recognition of a stranger you once knew in a life that is no longer yours. This is the true meaning of power. This is the foundation of your new empire. Let us return to the beginning, to that cold, steel table where your soul was laid bare. You have been waiting for the final scene of that horror movie, the moment where the monster gets its due. You have been anticipating the confrontation, the clever retort, the dramatic reversal where you stand over her emotionally, just as she once stood over you. You expect a reckoning. You are wrong. Revenge is a game for equals. Your goal is not to win the game she plays. It is to burn the entire board and walk away from the ashes. The man who was executed that day is dead. You are merely the executor of his will, and his will is not for vengeance, but for an oblivion so total that it erases the very memory of the battle. Imagine the scene. A year, 2 years have passed. You are not in a coffee shop, hoping for a chance encounter. You are at an event where power is the currency. A gallery opening, a private fundraiser, a launch party for an enterprise you have a stake in. The air is different here. Men walk with purpose. Women's gazes are not casual. They are assessments. You are not the same man. The gym has become your forge, carving discipline into your physique. Your focus has become a weapon, building a financial fortress around you. You move with a quiet economy of motion. Your stillness has a weight that draws the eye. You are speaking with a man of consequence when you feel it, a shift in the room's gravity. It is her. She sees you. And in that instant, her entire biological operating system short-circuits. The man she remembers was a collection of raw nerves, an open wound pleading for a gentle touch. The man she sees now is a monument of cold granite. She watches you, expecting a flicker of recognition, of pain, of anger. She gets nothing. You are a blank slate, and this terrifies her. So she does what her programming dictates. She approaches, a perfect smile plastered on her face, the same smile she wore as she vivisected you. "I almost didn't recognize you," she says, her voice a carefully calibrated instrument of casual warmth. But you are no longer listening to the instrument. You are reading the sheet music written on her body. You see the first tell. Her eyes. They are not making contact. They are scanning, trying to find the old you inside the new machine. You see the second. A slight, subconscious tilt of her head, the universal signal of submission and curiosity. Her words say, "You look different," but her biology is screaming, "What have you become?" She mentions something about her own life, a promotion, a trip, a meaningless accomplishment. It is bait. She is casting a line, hoping to hook you into the old dynamic of you listening, you validating. You see the third tell. Her body is angled toward you, even as she pretends to be looking around the room. Her feet, the most honest part of the body, are pointed directly at your center of mass. She is physically anchored to you, despite her verbal pretense of detachment. Fourth, fifth, and sixth tells come in rapid succession. A subtle preening gesture as she tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, a slight parting of her lips as she finishes her sentence, the barely perceptible increase in the rhythm of her breathing. Her conscious mind is playing a social game. Her will is on its knees, begging for your attention. And then comes the seventh and most damning tell. She creates a moment of contrived physical contact. Light, accidental touch on your forearm as she laughs at something neither of you finds funny. That touch is a desperate signal flare from a sinking ship. It is her biology overriding her ego, an involuntary plea for connection with the power you now radiate. The old you would have interpreted this as a sign of hope. You would have seen it as an opening, a chance to finally get the validation you craved. Your heart would have pounded in your chest. But you are not the old you. You are a cold reader of a language she doesn't even know she's speaking. You see the signals not as an invitation, but as raw data confirming a hypothesis. Her dismissal of you was never about your worth. It was about your weakness. Now that you project strength, her entire calculus has changed. Here is what you do. You do not flinch. You do not pull away. You do not react at all. You let your eyes drift from her face down to the hand on your arm, holding the gaze for a single, deliberate second. Then you look back into her eyes. You offer to give her a slow, deliberate blink. And in that silent moment, you communicate everything. You tell her, I see this, I understand it, and it means nothing to me. You then give a slight, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture of finality, and you turn your body and your full attention back to the man you were speaking with, leaving her standing alone in the wake of your indifference. You do not excuse yourself. You do not say, it was nice seeing you. You simply continue. You have not rejected her. To reject something is to assign it value. You have classified her as irrelevant data and purged her from the system. This is the ultimate dominion. It is the realization Schopenhauer wrote about, that the greatest freedom is to want nothing. You wanted her validation, and you were a slave. Now you want nothing from her, and you are a king. The chessboard was flipped, but you didn't just walk away from the game. You have forgotten that you were ever a player. Her existence has been downgraded from a painful memory to a neutral fact, as significant as a piece of furniture in the room. This is not about being cruel. Cruelty requires emotional investment. This is the cold, clean logic of a man who has built his own universe with its own center of gravity. She does not exist in it. Respect is never given. It is never earned through pleasing others. It is imposed. It is the silent, unavoidable consequence of the power you project, the standards you hold, and the options you are willing to walk away from. Your absence from her life is now a more powerful statement than your presence ever was. Your silence is the final word in an argument she doesn't even realize she lost. You are the architect of your own reality now. The foundation is built, but the empire is not yet complete. This is a lifelong campaign, and every day is a new battlefront. Solidify your commitment to this war. Subscribe to Psychological Dominion and activate all notifications, because every piece of intelligence is critical for the mission ahead. Drive the like button into the ground as a symbol of the old you being buried. And now, answer the final command in the comments below. She is a ghost from a past you have burned to the ground. What is the name of the new empire you are building upon those ashes? Define your legacy. The goal was never to win her back. The goal was to make her irrelevant.